Welcome back, everyone. It is now time for Daniel Hasselberg, CEO of MAG Interactive, to present his company. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Daniel, I'm co-founder and CEO of MAG. We're a mobile games company from Stockholm. We've been around for about 10 years now and have 100 employees here in Stockholm and in our Brighton studio in the UK. Our games have been downloaded more than 350 million times during the years, and we are targeting primarily casual gamers. So basically anyone who's not calling themselves a hardcore gamer is our audience. And we are in the free-to-play space, so our business model means that you can download and play our games for free, and revenues are generated from in-app purchases and advertising. And as a free-to-play developer, it's really the combination of both the creative part with creating fun and engaging games, and the data part when it comes to optimizing and customizing the game experience that's really key. And on top of that, the marketing part is extremely important as a free-to-play developer, because you are acquiring users and you pay for that and they can play the games for free. So you need to be on top of your prediction models to make sure you can early predict if the lifetime value of those customers will exceed what you paid at the acquisition point. So we've invested a lot during the years in infrastructure for doing these prediction models and building tools for our marketing team to make sure they can really spend marketing dollars where they will come back with a profit. I'll come back to that shortly. So mobile games is a massive industry. It's more than $100 billion opportunity, and it's the biggest entertainment industry in the world. And here we see a breakdown of MAG's revenues. So 36% comes from the US market, so that's our most important market, and what we always look to when we build and design new games. We also have a fairly large footprint in Western Europe, and then you see the other 20%, it's a very global spread. Just thanks to Apple and Google, you have the App Store and Google Play Store basically on every mobile phone in the world. So 3 to 4 billion people that are the kind of potential audience for the games. But we continue to be very focused on the Western markets. That's where we've proven our strength. Over this last decade, we really built a strong portfolio of games. So we continuously launched games during the last 10 years, which means that we now have games in all various parts of a game's life cycle. And that builds a robustness of the business. So having both games that are very mature, steady earners, and then the newer games with more growth potential. And on a typical day, about 2 million people play our games, and they spend more than 1 million hours playing them. So it's a very highly engaged audience. So sometimes the game, the word casual can be a bit deceiving. It's a very enthusiastic crowd that play and spend a lot of time in these games. It's more that the games are very accessible. That's what casual refers to. So if we look a bit at our game portfolio, how we can divide it in terms of maturity and revenues, we have what we call our game catalog, which are more mature but slightly smaller titles where we don't invest much time in terms of new development or marketing investments. And then the very important part with our evergreens, which are games that were launched several years ago, have passed their peak and are now at a very significant revenue and daily active user base, and games that we can see that we can count on for many years to come in terms of driving revenues with a very high profit margin. So those 4 games we see here in the evergreen segment are really important to us. And then we have the new games where we continuously have development of new products. So again, in different parts of the new development cycle. So we have everything from early concepts and prototypes to games that we're currently testing in the market. And how we approach this is that we work a lot in stealth mode, so testing things that is not under the MAG brand yet to make sure we can really be in touch with the audience and get data on how well these games are performing at an early stage to make sure we know when to stop or when we should continue and double down. And that's also reflected in our accounting principles. So as long as games are not at a soft launch stage, we don't treat this as investment and put it on the balance sheet. So if we stop games early, that's not going to be seen in our profits. And then, of course, we have the growth segment. These are the games where we invest most in terms of building new exciting features and events, and that's also where we invest the majority of our user acquisition money. So looking at this picture, we see 3 in-house developed games that have been launched 2018, 2019, and 2020. So it's Word Domination and Wordsea and new Quiz Duel. And the more recently acquired games that came into this financial year. So our year goes from September through August. So we have Primetime that came in earlier in the year and Word Mansion that came slightly later. But I really think this is a very balanced picture of a game portfolio. So a few words about these acquisitions. So Primetime is a live trivia show that goes live. So for the last 3 years, 8 p.m. you've been able to start your Primetime app and take part in this live trivia show where the winners get to earn real money. So it's a very exciting trivia experience. And we see that a lot of players play together with friends or family, even on the same phone. So it's a very social experience that we really like. But the big kind of driver strategically for us when it came to this acquisition was that we saw a good fit with a new exciting trivia format, with us already owning the biggest mobile trivia game in Europe, which is new Quiz Duel. So the integration of live trivia into that game is what we're really excited about seeing happening now. So here are a few pictures where you can see what it looks like. So for Quiz Duel, Germany is the most important market. So Quiz Duel as a game has been downloaded more than 100 million times, and about 40 million of those downloads is from Germany. So it's a very big established brand in the German market. ITV has licensed our IP, Quiz Duel, and they have run a TV show on the biggest TV channel in Germany for, I think, 6 or 7 seasons now. And that's why getting the live feature out for the Germans is the most important part for us. And here we can see what it looks like a bit in the studio and in the game. And if you play currently in the German market, you see this live tab, and you can play several times a week. The live show goes on. You can play. Currently, we run it 4 times a week, testing out the formats and the show hosts. And we have between 10 and 20,000 viewers each show right now. The monetization here is slightly different from other game modes in our games. So on top of the in-app purchases, where you can buy lifesavers in case you get a question wrong, we also have sponsorships. So this is the same business model that we've seen worked successfully for Primetime. So we have big brands coming in and are kind of the presenters of today's show, sometimes with specific prices as well. So in this particular example, you see Storyteller, which is one of the sponsors we work with in the German market. What's still coming shortly is the real money prices. So we have that in the Nordic countries with Primetime, and that's something that's in the works now for the German market. So as soon as we have the real money in place, then we'll start kind of market this feature more heavily, both inside the game and outside the game into the German market. So very exciting opportunity for us to build a completely unique trivia product in the marketplace. Apprope is another acquisition that we closed now in January of this year. So this is a small Stockholm-based studio that now moved into the MAG headquarters. It's a 2-man studio, but they, same as MAG, has been around for almost 10 years. So that means that they also have a portfolio of games that are in different parts of the game life cycle. So a very profitable portfolio. 2 of our evergreen games are now coming from the acquisition of Apprope. But what also made us enthusiastic about this acquisition was the game engine they built for narrative and decoration games. So this is a kind of a subcategory of games, if you will, that have been very popular the last couple of years, starting in match 3, but now going into other categories as well, where you follow a story that makes it engaging for the player to continue playing. And the progression is visualized as a kind of decoration of in this case, a big house, but it could be other things that you kind of make look better over time, and that's the sense of progression as a player. The first game built on this engine is called Word Mansion, and we've seen that grow really well since the acquisition, and I think people outside us also noticed some great traction on the charts, among others in the US market. What we've also seen work really well with the acquisition of Apprope has been the fast integration into MAG's core systems. So we now have the game analytics platform is hooked into their games, so they can use the same tools and dashboard to analyze the games, and we can easily benchmark between different games in the MAG portfolio, which is a good strength. And also on the user acquisition side of things, that we can make use of all these prediction models that we built also apply that on the Apprope games. So going up one level and looking at the top line revenue for the company, this is what it's developed over the last couple of years. We see 9 quarters here and a continuous growth, and a lot of this is connected to our focus on average revenue per daily active users. That's basically the measure of how effective are we at monetizing the player experience. And we've really done this across the entire game portfolio. So all the teams have really taken new steps to improve how the games work and have more engaging events that can drive more in-app revenue spend and so on. So it's been really fantastic for us to see as a company where we focused on this and really made it happen continuously for now more than 9 quarters. You can also notice the kind of COVID related bump there a year ago. We got a lot of traffic coming in the time of lockdowns. Our last reported quarter is December through February, so that's our Q2, where we could see a 44% growth in revenues year-over-year. And we were also able to invest more in user acquisition, so that's a good thing for us. So we were able to invest 22 million versus 14 the year before. And a very important measure for us is what we call game contributions. It's basically what we have left when we have paid for the user acquisition that quarter and also pay the platform fees to Apple and Google that take a 30% cut of the in-app revenues. Now we're seeing some movements in that area. So Google has now, from this summer, they go down to 15% for the first $1 million every year. And as I think many people are aware of, there's a lot of movement here. So potentially this could improve. The tax rates might go down if you refer to tax. The in-app revenues in our games went up 74% year-over-year. So that's again a testament to the team's really strong work in improving monetization. And we ended the quarter with more than 10 million SEK in EBITDA. The user acquisition dynamics is something that's very important to understand, as of course as a free-to-play company, but also as an investor in free-to-play companies. As you have a free game means that you get 0 back the first day after acquisition, and then you have a time where you kind of retrieve or recoup the investment, and then you see the profits coming over time. So this is to conceptualize what it could look like when you grow a game and continuously increase your investments every month or every quarter. Will take a while before the revenues catch up and eventually start helping you add to the bottom line. Our ideation process is something we continuously work on as a company to make sure we can learn from how we make games and how we get games to market in an efficient way. And here, of course, it's really important to be efficient and shut down projects that don't make sense. And one thing that we do, which I think is pretty amazing thing with how we can approach mobile games, is that we do in this pre-production step you see in this picture, do mock-up of games before they even exist, to try that and market those games to a potential audience to see click-through rates on ads and see how attractive this actually is, so you don't build games that will be very hard to market. And then you can even cancel projects before you start them, which is of course a very efficient way of working. Typically our path from idea to a soft launch takes us between 6 and 12 months and costs less than 10 million Swedish kronor. Something else that we've been working on is to make sure we build reusable technology. So we have a common backend system for all our games to make sure we can reuse the same matchmaking and A/B test systems and event engines and all kinds of components that are actually very similar in multiple games, which means that when we approve them, all of the games can benefit. But also down to a game level, we are working more and more on making these reusable software components that makes us become better and more efficient at making games, but also makes it easier for one game that does a successful improvement to translate that improvement to one of the other games in the portfolio. Same thing with analytics tools and live operations tools, of course. So just summarizing, looking ahead into the future, we have a very balanced portfolio, both this kind of stable evergreen earners and the exciting growth opportunities. We have a strong financial position with 75 million in the bank, which means that we can both invest heavily in user acquisition when we see opportunities and look at more M&A targets. The common infrastructure is the key thing here for building a long-term company. We've now been around for 10 years and we're thinking about the next decade. So make sure we really invest for the long term. And of course, in the recent acquisitions, Primetime is just about now to have the live feature with real money coming out in QuizDuel, and that's when that journey begins. And with Apprope, that's only been with us since January. There's of course tons of opportunity to work together for the coming years here as a part of MAG. So with that, I think I can start taking some questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel. Impressive indeed. So business revenue increased 44 last quarter. What was the driver between the increased revenue per daily user?
Yeah, so it's basically multiple things in parallel. We're working a lot with the events in the games, so that's kind of time-limited game modes that show up and create a sense of urgency for the player to take part in that, and that's we've seen been a very efficient way of driving both ad revenues and in-app purchase revenues. It's something you see the timer going down, you really want to engage with that before it goes away. So those events have been added to multiple of the games, and we see them continuously improve. But then it's also the product mix. So all the newer games we have in the portfolio have significantly higher ARPDAU than the average. So when they become a bigger and bigger part of the overall, you also see the average climb up.
I see. And what would you say are the most important characteristics for a free-to-play game?
The key thing that we start with, and I think most companies start with, is retention. So since it's free to download, you need to get people to engage and spend a lot of time with you, because there's always going to be a relation between time spent and money spent. So when we look at games and evaluate early on, it's kind of how many days and hours will we get from the players on average in this product. And if it's not good enough, we need to cancel it or rethink it, because engagement there is really key. We look at games like Russell that we launched 9 years ago, we still have a massive user base still around, and that kind of retention is of course a dream for a company to build around.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking about increasing revenue per user, have you considered season passes, or perhaps you have season passes in your games?
We have something that's fairly similar. So in Word Domination, for example, we have a monthly subscription, and through that subscription, when we have events running, you have kind of parallel price ladders, so you get better prices if you are a subscriber rather than not being. It's pretty similar, but instead of being kind of buy one pass at a time, it's a continuous subscription. And we see the engagement in the subscribed user base is amazing, where a lot of people play more than 25 days per month.
And you mentioned that you're looking for potential M&A targets. Could you elaborate what kind of companies you're looking for, and what are the most important aspects for a potential target?
So say in terms of price range, we're pretty open. We're definitely not limited to the cash we have in the bank, so we're looking at some things that are much bigger and some are slightly smaller. But I think the key part is to figure out, is this something that will benefit MAG for many years to come? We're not just looking for adding some EBITDA. We're looking for something that kind of makes sense for us logically. I think you can see with our recent acquisitions that they fit really well strategically with what we're doing. And then it's about kind of founder fit. Do you find people that we want to work with, and do they really want to work with us? And I think the best acquisitions is when you are the best buyer. That's the position we want to come to, so they can see why it makes more sense to sell to us than anyone else. Then you can both get a good working relationship and also get a good price, I think, as a buyer. And that could take time. So that's why we've been doing acquisitions all the way back since 2014. Sometimes 2 in the same year, and sometimes nothing happens in a year and a half. And that's natural because the timing needs to be right. It's a huge thing for a founder to sell their company. So the stars need to align, and sometimes they do, and sometimes it takes more time. So we have a lot of parallel dialogues going on. And when it makes sense, it's going to happen again.
Good. So as a final question, what do we have to look forward to from MAG Interactive in the coming year, if you would like to stress just a few things?
Yeah, I mean, things that we keep coming back to a lot is the potential of our growth games. So that's what's most obvious to me, at least. What's going to happen with QuizDuel, where we have a very large audience. So every new improvement we do to that game has a very big effect on the bottom line for the company. And then, of course, with Apprope, it's very exciting to see what we can do with this engine. We can do with more word mention and more games that can come out of that. And Words, which is our other big growth title, which have really strong KPIs, and it's all about making sure that the marketing work well, and you can see really strong growth when that really resonates well with the market. So those are kind of clear that for everyone to see right now, and that we can also see obvious opportunities. Then I think as a game maker and entrepreneur, you're always most excited about the stuff that's not even out there yet, like the new games we're building on that's going to be 10 times better than everything else.
Yeah.
But that's part of the nature, I think, as an entrepreneur, that you dream about what's not there yet. But there's enough opportunity you can already see that to be excited about. So,
I think that's a perfect cue to end on. Thank you very much once again, Daniel, for taking the time to make the presentation, and best of luck on your continued journey.
Thank you so much.